Well, things are still drying out a bit, so I haven't had an opportunity to really do any new digging in the yard since October. I was just going to do a quick update. Our Arborvitae that we planted last year, it looks like we're going to lose maybe a couple of them here, which is kind of discouraging. I've got to check into that. I'm taking some grafts off the ones that have survived, especially these two guys that were in the extremely dense clay when they were in the pot. They seem to be doing okay, except for some dead branches around the bottom, which I expect when something's transplanted like that. So that's where we stand on the Arborvitae. Now the tea olives are flourishing. I planted these. They've doubled in size just over the last few months. Now we're in zone 7B here, so we don't have an extreme winter. We had one good hard frost, I think, or one good hard freeze. But other than that, just some frosty nights. And no snow or precipitation to speak of this year. The weather is beautiful, and we had a bag of bulbs, tulip bulbs, that we purchased at Lowe's or Home Depot or somewhere last fall with the intention of planting them in mid-November, but we ended up procrastinating, getting involved in other stuff. So it was the end of December before I planted these guys. I mean, it was New Year's when I planted them. Now, right now it is March the 5th, and these guys are up. And tulips, from what I hear, don't typically do well the first year. You know, they thrive after being in the ground a couple of years, but I've got a lot of those things that look like little chaparros coming out on the top of these guys. And I'm gonna have some nice blooms in the next couple of weeks. So what I did was I actually planted these in the areas where I seeded for grass to prevent erosion last fall when I was digging in the yard. So basically going today between them with the hedge trimmers to cut everything down, the grass that's in between them, and clean them up so that you can actually see them from the driveway. Once I do that, I'm going to take some hay and put on top and just kind of mulch it. Now that's one of today's projects. Now, one of my Nellie Stevens hollies, I took 60 grafts off of this, hardwood cuttings, in November, 60 of them. And I planted them just in some peat in the bottom of a plastic container, wet them down a little bit, just left the lid on the last few months. Again, we haven't had any extremely hard freezes, but I want to show you what I have now, which really surprised me. I have this container in a shady spot in the yard. You can actually see the imprint in the grass there, which another project, got to cut some of this grass before I start back digging, because this project's not finished, but we didn't want it to all wash away during the winter. So we've got this beautiful emerald green grass here that I'm going to cut down, and later on some of it's just going to have to go, but it served its purpose. I did want to show in this bin here my hollies. I checked them this morning. I've been out of town for a week. I came back, and these, again, we're in zone 7B, so things are typically warmer. It's been in the upper 60s last week or so. So they've gotten kind of warm in here, and they've really been incubating. I pulled out a few of the dead ones this morning. I think there are a couple more that have looked like they pretty much had it, and I'll toss those out. Sorry about the finger shot there. But as you can see, I already have some blooms coming up on some of these, and there was nothing on these but, you know, nothing but little budding locations. There were no buds on them at the time, and some of them are already coming out. So I'm excited about that. The department of not losing your faith in something living. Here's one of my wife's plants. We actually left it outside until it dried up into a stick, and we brought it inside for the last month or so and kept it watered, even though it looked dead and it's coming back out. But I'm tasked with finding a place and setting that out in the ground so it will survive long term. I have another video I posted a while back. It wasn't a real popular video, but these are the baby Leylandi Cypress that survived my first rooting experiment from clip cuttings. And these are the successful living or survivors of my cloning experiment. But by far, to me, what I look forward to every spring, and it's always slow to bloom, or usually slow to bloom, is we have a Yoshino Cherry tree in the front yard here. And when it finally does bloom, it will be spectacular, but it's starting. And maybe I'll post a video the next week or so. I don't know if you can see the blooms the way I'm holding the camera, but it's starting to come to life. And it is pretty spectacular. The tree is, I don't know, about 25, 30 feet tall. And it's just a big snowball when it blooms, and it's going to be beautiful. Now, I'm coming out of hibernation now, and the trencher has been sitting here since October. One of the outriggers split, and I've got video of that happening, and actually the digging job, because I did bury the rest of this drain line from the patio area through the woods, and I have a video of that, and actually the moment during which the leg collapsed, or the outrigger collapsed. Now, I want you to take a good look. Now, the trencher, you know, people think I'm a little bit nutty talking about, you know, how great I think it is. But this has really been a neglected instrument. I have not had a place to put it under shelter since I had it. I think the thing's between 10 and 15 years old. It was this color when I bought it, and a lot of the fittings hadn't been greased. And it still performs wonderfully. It's sitting here right now because I had a problem with my wiring a few months ago, and I just have recently addressed that so that I can plug my welder in and use it. I lost all power to the workshop. It was actually due to a bad bus bar, not a breaker. I was swapping out a breaker on my main fuse box, thinking I was having problems with the breakers, but and I went down several rabbit holes troubleshooting my breaker panel out here. But what my root cause eventually was discovered to be the breaker bus bar. So got that fixed, or actually moved it to a better place than the bus bar. I've got my power back out there. I've just got to move some of my tools back up from the farm, and we're going to get the trencher fixed back up and running. Another thing I want to do is probably, or maybe, paint it in the near future before I start getting rust. And I don't know if I'm going to go with red or not. Suggestions are welcome. No sports teams, but that's where we stand. And we're about to come out of hibernation, like I say, and start back digging. I have to move the tractor back up here where in my other video, you probably saw it. Last fall, we pushed a lot of debris and brush up into a pile on the farm to burn it. And I've got some footage of that burning as well. I'll post probably. But happy spring. Okay, so I'm sure it was a slow watch, even with time lapse. But here's a completed project today. I just need to come back and put some hay over this or some mulch to keep the grass down until the tulips are done. Excuse me. Should have drank some water before I started talking, but we got that done. Okay, it's been about a week, and we had a few cold days while I was gone, and when I came back, we had some warm days, so the tulips are out. Looking pretty good for a first attempt at tulips. From what I understand, they come out better consecutive years than the first year, but this year they're looking pretty good. And here's the cherry tree. Like I say, it's the most spectacular thing in our yard in the spring. And I know that video can't do it justice. It's just spectacular.